Welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. We got an awesome episode today. We're going to be talking about a very spicy meatball, a hot topic in the wedding world, content creators. The question is, are they the devil, or is it all going to be okay in the end? Enjoy the episode, guys.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We have a really hot topic to talk about today. We're going to be talking about all the depravity of the healthcare system, right, Jay? That's what's relevant today. And
well, it's like, is socialized medicine good or bad? Is what we're going to get into.
Yes. So we have Bernie Sanders on hold as a special guest today. We're going to be going through that.
Well, Bernie Sanders and Matt Gaetz, and they're going to debate.
Good. No, they're going to knife fight.
Yeah.
We're going to host it live. So
it's not really a fair fight because Bernie Sanders is like 80.
Yeah, but he has that old guy energy, and
It's true. He's wily. Like anything can happen with Bernie.
Yeah. But how are you doing, Jay? How are things going on your end?
I'm finally not physically dying, which is good because I've been sick for weeks ever since Clarity.
Yep.
And my baby is crawling, so that's good.
Good. That's an adventure. It's good to do now as opposed to in the middle of the wedding season because, as someone who had a baby in the middle of the wedding season, I can tell you 0 stars. 0 stars out of 5.
I did too.
Yeah.
Last June. It was,
dude, it's a nightmare, man. It's tough.
It's literally, if it wasn't for how great it was to have a new human, like this is what I'm going to say to you. If you don't have kids, this is how you know how great it is to have kids and how amazing it is. Because there's nothing worse than having a newborn. It's from a life standpoint, like it will destroy your life. And you will like smile and say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Because the actual result is so good. So that's more of an endorsement for having children with a little dose of reality.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the wedding season. Like, anyway.
You know what's so funny is no one has any grace for each other when you're like, I'm going through this. It's like, yeah, I really don't want to hear about it because it's almost like post-traumatic stress when people are like, I'm dealing with this. I'm like, I don't want to think about that time in my life. It was so crazy.
Yeah. Or it's like,
and you're like, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Everyone's
nobody helped me at 3 a.m, so you have to
exactly. You have to suffer.
It's a rite of passage.
I would say, seeing people talk about it on line, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I've always like have a little chuckle because I'm like, you'll get through it. You'll be all right.
You will get through it. You will get through it. And if you're hearing me say the negative, you should have children. It's great.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about today? We're not talking about any of the things you just said.
No, none of those things. But still, I would say a very hot topic in the industry, and that is the subject of content creation.
Creation.
What that means for the wedding world, really starting last year, I would say it kind of came onto the scene with a pop. And
I remember we did a styled shoot and there was a content creator there. And I was like, oh no, it begins.
Yep. Changing of the guard, would you say?
No.
Okay.
But I would say like them as a presence at weddings. By the way, I didn't shoot with a single one last year. So I think a lot of this is being way overblown. Mm-hmm. But regardless, the question, I think a lot of this is like very controversial. And I remember like that video from the vendor's table popping up, the kind of hysterical podcast where there's no filmmaker and some photographers and a content creator talking about filmmakers. Kind of funny. And talking about how it's fine for filmmakers. Fine. It doesn't affect you. Like, in my 60 weddings that I did as a content creator, trust me, it doesn't affect you. And that ruffled a few feathers. I remember watching that, but it wasn't just that. Like, I've seen this come up. It is like there's like a few standard posts in a, filmmakers Reddit group or Facebook group or especially for wedding filmmakers. It'll be some, there's the whole photographers are idiots post. There's the raw footage post, which, for God's sake, guys, just do it or don't do it. Sell it, don't sell it. Like, for God's sake, guys, it's not that. It's like, of all the business things you ever would have to think about, the simplicity of raw footage, it's not much more simple. There are so many complex things. Literally, fix your packages or something. But anyway, you have better things to do than talk about raw footage. Raw footage, but one of the new standard posts that you see in a Facebook group is content creators are here. Guess all these something budget brides, or some throwing shade at content creators and how no one appreciates what we do, and kind of that little brother kind of Napoleon syndrome that wedding filmmakers have, just kind of on full display. And you see, and then there's one or two responses, which is like, I think it's great. And another person's like, I think it's terrible. And it's weird that something that kind of doesn't really affect us is so controversial. First of all, do you agree that it kind of doesn't really affect most people, at least right now?
Not right now. Not right now. I can agree with you there. I think that just you saying that you didn't work with a single one last year is relevant. But I do think moving forward.
Did you?
No, I don't think I did. Outside of stylized shoots, they're everywhere if you're on a stylized shoot, because the planners know it's coming. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
I asked 3 planners about it, and all of them said they hate them and don't want to hire them.
Cool. That's going to change, though. I promise.
Well, it's not up to them. That's the truth. But anyway.
I like this topic because I do think you and I probably have a difference of opinion a little bit. So it might get saucy. But I do think that change is coming. I do think, there are certain weddings that will be very affected by the emergence of content creation. I draw the comparison to AI, right? Like, everyone's like, AI, there's this thing. What can it do? And people are figuring out what it can do, what the relevance of the industry, the effect that it's going to have on the industry. And I think it's yet to play out. But if I know anything about the industry, which I would say I know plenty about the industry, I know a lot, probably a lot more than most, having the experience that we have and shooting the volume that we do and working with the people that we do, I think that a lot of people will be replaced in the industry. So why don't we start? I think it's valuable to just talk about what a content creator is, just right off the bat. If you're hearing this for the first time, you've been living under a rock for the last year and haven't heard the term content creation, how would you describe a content creator? I know here's the other part of it is I don't even know if content creators know what their part of the industry is yet.
Well, in terms of what the service they're delivering, yes, the product they're delivering, I think it's just live documentation being presented to the world, typically I think as a account takeover for the couple, via a cell phone and a social media platform, typically I think Instagram or TikTok. So for example, a content creator would log into the bride's TikTok and throughout the day document and post what's going on. It seems they also are creating somewhat montages from the content. So I think maybe that's where there's a little crossover with wedding filmmakers. And I also think I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this. It seems also that some are not so much doing the account takeover, but they're more just doing wedding filmmaking on a cell phone. But I think primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think primarily it's about posting for the bride.
Right. Well, this is what I think that's why I say it's not a definite thing yet. It seems to me, like it started as I'll post to your TikTok for you. That sounds great, right? Good. Now I'll post to TikTok and Instagram. Now it's going to evolve pretty quickly. Everyone can see the writing on the wall and knows what an iPhone can do in 2024. It's going to quickly evolve into I'm shooting wedding video for you. And I'm not just doing short-term content. What can I do with that extra content? I can probably put together a highlight film for you. Maybe it's vertical at first, But long term, as image quality gets better, could they shoot it vertically and then crop it? You know, what are the rules here as technology evolves? I think that's more the direction that it will go. So yes, you're going to post quickly, but you're also going to be able to create long-term content for people as well. So who would you say, based on, you know, the people that are commenting on content creators, you know, have a negative opinion, whatever, who do you think this is? Who do you think is getting a content creator right now? Because you just said you didn't encounter one. I didn't encounter one last year, but I think it's coming on the scene. I did have one planner reach out and say, hey, we hired a content creator for one wedding. Where do you think this is going? Where do you think it kind of hits the ground running
Zoomers.
first?
Zoomer weddings, the next crop of brides and grooms that are terminally online.
Young people, which probably means if they're younger, they have lower budget weddings. So I agree with you. I think that's exactly who's going to be affected first. First wave is going to be, you know what? We have $2,000 for a videographer. You know what? Maybe we just get a content creator, right? Instead of a videographer, because, you know, if it's a choice between the two, we don't have the luxury of getting both. We're going to choose a content creator. So it's going to be Zoomers who are on less of a budget.
I guess we should just address this question, because the big discussion that keeps happening that I've seen, you know, on the Vendors Table podcast, that they were so sure it wasn't going to affect wedding filmmakers. And I've essentially, I think it's the undercurrent of any time I've ever seen wedding filmmakers discuss it, is really just kind of what you kind of alluded to earlier, which is this is going to take jobs away from wedding filmmakers. And, you know, my opinion on that is, I mean, I said it straight up. I mean, even on the Vendors Table's Instagram account, like, to say that something that would be like, because they literally just say, oh, I don't think it's taking jobs away. I think it's providing an opportunity to get a wedding documented for someone who otherwise couldn't afford a wedding film. Now, where I think she's wrong and where I think they're wrong is they don't realize how many people who are new filmmakers are charging the same price.
Yes.
And those people actually could have afforded a wedding film.
Right.
And I think this is the core thing. And this is why I say it will take some jobs away. I do believe it is going to, but I think in a real serious way, I don't think it's going to like ruin the market, because it's a different product for a different person, different service. A person who wants a cinematic wedding film, who wants multicam coverage of their events, who wants good audio, who wants all these things, is not the same person. And they might be the same person. They might want both. But you're not hiring a wedding filmmaker to post to your account the whole day. Mm-hmm. And you're not hiring a content creator to create a cinematic wedding film. And I think if you are okay with a cell phone montage, that's okay. Like, you wouldn't have been making that as a wedding filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so I think really it comes down to, like, if you suck at what you do, or you're really, really new, or couples are really, really ignorant, they because I definitely, like, I'm coming from a place of knowing the difference. I'm sure there's going to be some couples who are like, yeah, it's all video. I'm sure there's going to be some people like that. But I do think most people are like, no, I want something that looks like this, or I want my account to be posted to. I don't think they're going to be thinking they're the same thing. Mm-hmm. I think they're just picking what they want. If you're a filmmaker who a person looks at your work and looks at someone walking around with a cell phone and goes like, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe you don't deserve to have those gigs. So I think it will affect people. And I'm not trying to be lack of empathetic towards those newer people. What I actually think is going to actually happen is what everyone always, because we just can't be pleased, Jared. Like, wedding filmmakers, we'll complain about everything. How many times have you heard over the years about bottom feeders and Craigslist filmmakers? Why are the same people who complain about those filmmakers who are ruining our reputation, delivering bad services, undercutting them, also complaining about the thing that's going to raise the floor?
Right. This is my hot take, is content creators is probably the best thing to happen to wedding filmmakers in the last 10 years since the 5D Mark II came out, right? Because if you're eliminating that whole bottom floor, and that's been my whole thing the whole time, is like raising the floor actually helps the industry a lot. So if you're just eliminating that floor, think of all the crappy booking agencies I talk about all the time, and everyone hates. Everyone has to work for them because they feed them crumbs and like allow me to stay in the industry. And then I get maybe 5 of my own weddings, but I'm shooting 15 for this terrible booking agency. That booking agency is going away if content creators are taking those jobs.
My guess is they just will all do content creators.
They're all going to become content creators, sure. And there's going to be a whole market for it. But when people are hiring a filmmaker, they're looking for a very specific thing that is going to be at a certain price point. I wouldn't be surprised if the base price for a filmmaker goes from whatever it is, $1,500 right now. Let's guess. I would say it's probably around there.
Close to $2 now, but something like that.
Somewhere.
That's average.
Let's say $1,500 to $2,000. I wouldn't be surprised in a year or two if that's going up to like $3,000, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe
I would say whenever
5 years.
you kind of hit that like market saturation point with the content creators.
Yep. That's where you're going to start seeing a lot more people that are like, no, we want a wedding film and we're willing to pay for it. So it actually doesn't muddy the waters between like, oh, wedding film, we just need a videographer. You're not going to have those people anymore because they're not going to exist. Like the market has just edged all those people out. That just the videographer people are gone. You want a filmmaker. Like you want someone who's, going to be putting together what we do. Or
here's another thing that could be kind of interesting with exactly what you're saying. There might be that you just get paid the same, but all you have to do is cover the ceremony.
Sure.
Like they're like, oh yeah, no, like
you talk about creating that as a separate product because there's a lot of people that just want that.
They would be like, oh, I don't need a highlight film.
Yeah,
I have my content creator, but I do want like good audio. Can you come in and like you could just say whatever you used to charge if you were getting started just for the highlight film, you just charge them for the ceremony, which jacks up the price for everybody because if the ceremony's now if a ceremony alone is consistently worth $2,000 or $1,500. That helps everybody. So it's like, I don't know if that'll happen, but
I would say the high end and luxury market will have both. They'll have a content creator and they'll have a filmmaker, people that are specialized in each. Because what's my proof of that is the fact that anyone in the high end market and the luxury market, they don't hire these companies to do both photo and video. They want a specialist. They want a specialist photographer. They want a specialist videographer. They're probably going to want a specialist content creator, all providing different levels of service and just offerings.
Here's what I'll tell you too. At the high end, it's going to make me money because the people that we're going to work with are going to expand my profile.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, cause they're going to play nice. They're going to follow the industry rules. They're going to be posting. They're going to be the best at social media, so who knows? Like, I don't know all for sure, but I guess the question of, we've kind of settled the question of like, what is it? And also, do we believe it's going to take people's jobs away? Which I think we both kind of, I don't think it's going to be as hot as you think. That's what I think. I think a lot of people are going to, not everyone is that vain, like a lot of people aren't terminally online. Like a lot of when I think of the couples I work with, they're not posting all the time. They don't want that experience. Now, if you're in like LA or certain parts of the America, down in Miami, you have certain types of clientele, you'll probably see it more. But like if you're up like in Massachusetts with brides like we have, they're so understated. They're so quiet.
Yeah.
Like I think it's gonna for sure be very like market driven. Unlike filmmaking is timeless. Every market can handle filmmaking. I don't think everyone wants every part of their day to be on social media. The fact that like a lot of people want to buy a wedding film but don't want anyone else to see it tells you that.
Yeah. I my only argument, and I don't want to like create a stereotype of like, oh, well, Gen Z is this way and millennials are this way. I do think there are some differences there for sure. We'll see. Is Gen Z gonna mature and grow out of this phase of like wanting everything to be posted? So by the time they're 35 years old, because our average age of the people that we're filming is probably around 35. People that have money, they've been dating for 10 years. That is kind of like our stereotypical couple, right? Age range.
28 to 35, but not
Sure.
not 22, not 21.
Not 22 to not 21, which is where
I
you kind of
honestly
see a lot
can't
more content
remember the
creation.
last time I ever shot a wedding of a person that young.
Yeah.
My sister.
Yeah. Yeah. With the company that we're offering and what we're doing, we have a lower end brand, Merriment Films, that I do see younger people buying because it's cheaper, you know? And this is where I'm going to see a lot more content creators, I think. Either A, replace the jobs that we're currently doing, or coming in, you know, jointly to work alongside us. I do think that starts to happen. So, you know, for us, like my strategy is, look, guys, I'm going to actually do content creation. I'm getting a content creator. I'm doing the phone. I'm rigging it out. The whole thing. You saw the other day, Ray posted like a content creator with his small rig with the 2 handles and the lights on it. It's an iPhone, dude. And he has a hard drive on it. Like that's the content creator of 2024. Like they just had a phone last year. They're coming at you with
I don't think they're going to do that though. I think that they're going to.
It's already happened.
I know, but I think that guy's not going to be successful. I think the girls who are going to be successful are going to be the girls who dress real cute, hold their phone
That
up.
guy, yeah, like
Hold their phone up,
Totally.
very non-discreet.
Yep.
Like I think maybe a mild rig just for some audio, but
Yep.
like no lights. Like I think like you're gonna have both, and I think that's gonna be the hard part for all of us.
Mhm.
The fact that the market hasn't like I know what they should be doing, they don't know what they should be doing. You know, the fact that this person who's on a podcast is giving a bunch of advice to the whole industry, done 60 weddings,
Mhm.
like she still might be the most experienced person. And how crazy is that?
Yep.
She doesn't know anything. She literally was like, well, I guess I've never, she's like, oh, I never do high-end events. I did one high-end event. I'm like, lady, come back and talk to me in a few years when you've actually been in the industry and seen some things. That is going to be the worst part. I think for all of us, like in the industry, integrating a new vertical, an entirely new service into our flow. When we were like, come on, we got a good thing going. We got a vibe. And then this person's going to come in. Like, I'll tell you this. If I'm doing a portrait session and a content creator starts talking, I'm going to be like, shut up. Like,
there's a lot of those types of interactions that are going to have to sort themselves out. Like you as a videographer, you know where your place is.
Yes.
When a photographer's working with a couple, you're not being like, all right, now you stop. I'm hot. Like there's certain unwritten rules
yes.
that still has to be figured out. And I'm not really looking forward to that, to be honest.
No, it's going to be the worst because of the type of person who wants to do that job.
Right. Sure.
They're going to be this insecure person who's going to.
But I think that sorts itself out pretty quickly. The people that will annoy you and the people that will annoy me and any filmmaker out there is the same type of person that would annoy me in this as a photographer
Or in the real
cheap
world.
market. Sure. But someone who's inexperienced, who's just doing dumb things and being super inconsiderate, that's not necessarily due to the service, that's due to inexperience.
Yes.
So
that's the actual issue. The
and
issue is
that's
not
why
the
it's gonna
service. The
happen.
issue is these inexperienced people orbiting the dance floor. And I'm like, I don't want to see you. First, like, I don't want to see some person like this with their phone. Like, we've spent the last 20 years telling people to put their phones away, which I always think is a little bit crazy. But like, I don't want a person who's like standing awkwardly in the background with a phone in all my shots. Like
it's gonna happen.
It is going to happen. And I think that's going to be the thing where you're going to have to come up with a stern but non-day ruining way of telling someone, you got to stop.
Yep. Yeah. It's going to be, I don't really have that conversation a lot with the photographer. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be here. Am I in your way? Like there's a good working relationship. I think the conversation you're going to have with a content creator is like, how can we make this work that you're not in all my shots and I'm not in your shots? How can we work together? It's going to have to be the same thing. They're going to annoy you. It's going to be terrible for the first year.
My personal opinion, if you're listening to this and you're a content creator, is I can be in your shots as much as I want. I was like, you're supposed to be documenting real life, for God's sake. Like, I am making a cinematic wedding film. I don't want to see you. Like,
Yes.
Don't make me move. Like,
Well, it's the same interaction of like
if that
with
if
a photographer. Like
Yeah.
the photographer, I can't be in the photographer shot.
But they can be in my shot.
They can be in my shot because
Yes.
I can cut them out. They can kind of work around. I think just the hierarchy is something that is going to have to be discussed and figured out, and that's going to be
whose thing is
challenging,
ruined
but-
by seeing the people in it? Your video's not ruined by me being in it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mine is ruined by you.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
if you don't understand that, like, I'm not being a jerk. I'm just telling you, like, every time you're in my shot, I'm going to be annoyed. If I'm backing up with my gimbal and you're trying to, like, if there's 3 people in the aisle now, 4 people, because everyone for some reason has their second shooter next to them. I don't know why you need a first and second shooter.
I can't wait for the double content creator, 2 content creators on site.
Okay, I have, you know what? I have one content creator story, and it was a bad experience.
Okay.
I shot a wedding one time I won't say where, with some photographers that spent an hour, literally an hour, doing flat lays.
Yeah. Okay. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
It's pretty.
If they plan for it.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a bad sign, is what I said.
Okay.
I was like, this is just not what you would be doing. Like you clearly what's important to them. Like, why are they so slow? Don't you just know that you got your shot? Like, what are you doing? And it was two girls and a content creator just talking to each other about it. Just talking.
I
Keep
don't
moving
know.
things around, adjusting things. Listen, if I was right by the end of the day. So because what they're actually doing is they're all just talking, and they're like, they don't know what the event they're at. And so this person has a content creator with them making content, I think, for the wedding photographer.
Right.
And I'm like, come on. And this person is in our portrait sessions shouting out poses. And just like literally, I'm like, who is this person? Like, what kind of team is this? Like, who's in charge? Like, what is going on here? It was pure chaos. At one point, they take the couple out to do sunset photos. And what's funny is it's on video, this conversation. And they don't tell me. We get no portraits with this couple. It was kind of a odd kind of vibe of the day, but their couple was fine. But it was just like one of those days where the couple's like doesn't want to do anything. But this sunset pops out, and I'm like, let's go. And so I run out because they don't tell me either. Their reasoning was like, they don't really want to do it, so we're just gonna do it quick and like screw you, filmmaker. You know. So I run out and they do a pose. And after their pose, I say to the couple, hey guys, can I just get one shot of you guys? This content creator in front of the couple turns around, looks at me and goes, no, they're good. They're good. They're all done. And I was like, excuse me? And the couple like didn't hear me, luckily, saying, can I shoot with you? So they kept walking. And then this lady interrupted. So, you know, the couple didn't know. But I look at the lady, I'm like, do not ever do that ever again. Do not talk to me like that in front of a couple.
Right. I don't work for you.
And I said, I don't work for you.
Yes.
I get paid to do my job. Let me do my job.
Yeah.
And I'll let you do your job.
Right.
So never say that to me.
Yeah. Especially when it's like, and it's not to say it to be a dick, but like, I promise they paid me more to make a film than they paid you to do content creation.
Well, and also like,
so
you got a shot and I want a shot. Like everyone who's actually, and that's what I'm saying. Everyone in the industry knows, like, you don't do that to your creative partners.
Right.
Like if you get a sunset shot and then you deny them the sunset shot, like, first of all, like, what if the couple's mad?
Right.
What if the couple's like,
they were like, you were there.
You were there. You were shooting. And it's like, no, I didn't even have my camera in focus yet.
Right. Right.
Like you normal people don't do that. And I think those experiences could be happening with these content creators where, like,
oh, it's certainly going to happen.
They're like, have this relationship with the couple. They've been hanging out with them.
Well, it's going to be, and again, probably not every time. And I don't want to stereotype, but what do inexperienced people say all the time? They go, I just want to have a relationship with my couple. I had 5 phone calls with them leading up to the day. All these inexperienced content creators immediately are going to have that relationship. I went on 7
dates with them.
So since I had 5 conversations with them, even though I only charged them $8.50 to do this content, I have a relation. I know when they're done. They're going to take this, authoritative position. And you're going to have to say, look, like respectfully, I don't work for you. I have to do my job and you have to stay out of the way because you're just a content creator. Not say necessarily like that, but it's going to have to be
it's
said.
not that what you're doing is diminished. It's like, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. Don't tell me how to do mine.
Right.
I don't care if you work for $10 an hour for this couple by going on 7 dates with them because you want to tell their whole story or something and think that they're your best friend now.
Right.
Like, it's not my problem. However you want to do your job is not my problem. I think that's going to be the worst part about the actual immersion of the industry. But I think the actual service and product is going to have less impact on filmmakers than, it was like Ray Roman was talking on the post, and he was just like, just dealing with these people. I don't want to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can appreciate that to some level. Now, let's talk about the flip side. The flip side is this. I think filmmakers can make some money on this.
That's what I think. We're already in position to do it. So if you're someone who is saying this is bad for the industry, this is going to take jobs, whatever, I can tell you that when Jay and I first got into the industry, 2010, and we were shooting on Canon 5D Mark IIs, we took a lot of people's jobs who are still shooting mini DV camera, had the same approach, wore the photo vest. They hated us. And, if you don't adapt and change over time, you're going to be left behind. And if you're someone who's like saying, no, this isn't coming, if you deny it, if you try to talk down to it and just say like these content creators aren't serious, you're going to find yourself replaced pretty quickly. Like that's the unfortunate truth. Don't hate the player, hate the game. The game is changing. You need to adapt to it.
The artist in me also is always excited by new mediums. And I'm always like, okay, is there a storytelling opportunity here? Like, what different stories can I tell using a phone and not focusing on editing,
right?
Focusing on immediately communicating to an audience. Like, can you elevate your shooting when you have none of the crutches that we have of all this beautiful lenses? Like, like there's an interesting creative process to be explored too. My fear is that the people getting into it are more just addicted to social media and not actually good at the art form.
Totally.
And I would hope that would be the first evolution of the content creator game, that some people would show up and do it artfully and do it really beautifully and do something unique. Because I see the opportunity.
Right now, filmmakers are in the very best position to capitalize on content creation. And that's going to change in a couple of years once all these quote unquote content creators are putting weddings under their belt and getting the experience. They're slowly going to become good shooters. They will. It just comes with experience. So either you get with the times and become good at it now, maybe hire someone, your second shooter, to do it. Figure it out. Like that's what.
Yeah, it is a different language too. Is like what is important on social media is not what's important
to a filmmaker,
or even in a wedding film.
Mm-hmm.
Like a wedding film, the storytelling approach is much more nuanced, right? And probably a lot. It's probably the exact opposite in some ways. Like when you look at wedding film storytelling, it's all about, people say authenticity, but it's authenticity of emotion and like characterization, not authenticity of like show the trash that was in the room. And, like what do we always say if we see a drone shot? Look at all those cars, like I do think you're going to have to, like, some wedding filmmakers can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't reprogram their brain. Like, I think I could do it, but I also know, like, I have an aversion to that style of social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, you don't need to be posting everything about your day. Are you like narcissistic psycho? Like, you don't need to be. Well, it's like, no, Jay, like, you're old. And I do think a lot of people don't like that, but there are just people that's how they live their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what they do. Like you'll see random people, they post 10 stories a day about like eating a sandwich, and like every part of their day is documented. I think like the uber curation of wedding filmmaking and the moments that are worth sharing on social are somewhat different. And I think that is going to be hard. I think that's hard. Like, yeah, you're a good shooter, but that's not the point of social media.
Mhm.
The point of social media is like connecting with, I was watching a bride at a wedding. She must have some kind of, at least some following. And it was her and her 2 sisters, right? And they took out their phone and they were going like, what are we wearing today, girls? I'm wearing this. I'm wearing this. And they're like all talking about what they're doing and like, showing their dress. And they're just like a whole different language they're speaking visually with their body language. Every one of them has the eye contact down. Like it's a totally different world.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think like the art side, like there's a place probably for more of a wedding filmmaking curated style of content creation, but most of it's going to be more Zoomer humor, TikTok style,
Blow your brains out content.
stuff that you hate, like
Yeah.
stuff like what am I wearing today, and like
Now we're all gonna have our robes on. We're gonna jump, and then we're gonna cut it. And when we land, we're all gonna have our dresses on.
yeah, I don't think
That crap.
I don't think they'll do that. Maybe they will, but
Wow, that's Zoomer crap.
Well, that's true.
It's terrible.
There's probably the meme style content creators that are
Yeah.
going to do a bunch of memes with the couple.
Yeah.
And then also the stories, like just showing stories, and there's going to be that mix.
Mhm.
And I definitely am not like hip to that stuff. Like that. I mean, I'll tell you this: I'm glad that I don't have to be in that market because that market is volatile. Like what we do is kind of timeless.
Mhm.
If you want to be a content creator and you don't know what's cool on social media, good luck.
Well, I think there's no way that you have full-time social media people. That's the truth. Like maybe if you live in New York City and you can do content creation for 40 weddings a year, but then during the week you're working with brands, you're going to have to pair it with something. You couldn't do content creation the way that we do videography, averaging a cost of $6,500 per wedding, $7,000 per wedding, just because you won't be able to charge as much for content creation. I think there's no way you hire a mass market will allow for content creators to charge that much money and provide a full-time
because what you're doing is, I mean, as much as I'm talking up how hard it is, it's not as hard as
zero editing, no edit, no.
you don't even need to know what
post-production at all.
ISO is.
Right.
You don't need to know anything about a camera.
Right.
Like, you barely even need to know what good composition is or good shooting. Like, it's just the barrier to entry is so low.
Mhm.
And barrier to entry for wedding filmmaking is actually really high.
Yeah.
And from a gear standpoint, skill standpoint, everything. So, I guess we'll see, right?
I think I think it's great for our industry as wedding filmmakers because it's going to cut that chaff out. Yes, you're not going to have quote unquote bottom feeders, which I would never call that.
I don't call them bottom feeders.
I don't call them bottom feeders, but I think people understand the terminology there. People charging $1,500 for a wedding film, 3 to 5 minute highlight film, full day coverage, 2 video. You're not going to have that anymore. That's going to go away because people are just going to switch over to content creation. But what that does is it elevates the art form. People are either going to have to, videographers are either going to have to raise prices and get into the high end and luxury market because that's where the only work is. Or they're going to have to become content creators, or they're going to have to switch careers and move out.
Let me ask you this question then, and this is what we'll end on. How does, I don't believe that the whole bottom of the market's going to be taken over by content creators. I think it's going to be a mix still, but there will be some people who pick a content creator over a filmmaker. Increasingly so, we'll see. If it is heavily affected, right? Like if there was, just for example, in a city, like at one point, I think it's something like in Miami, there's 70,000 weddings a week. Right? I don't know if that's true. That's just what someone told me. So, it wouldn't surprise me if there was, millions of weddings a year in Miami, right? Because it's a major destination city, huge population built in, a lot of all different ranges. Regardless, there's a lot of weddings in cities.
Mhm.
So let's imagine you live in a city that has less than that. Maybe
I don't think it'd be millions.
yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. There's
Well,
only
it's probably the number was probably based on like a peak season or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
But regardless, it's like let's imagine that you live in a market that has like 100,000 weddings a year.
Mhm.
You know, total for the whole market
Yeah.
across all price points. And you as a wedding filmmaker, you know, you're getting started, you know, and you're competing for that bottom 70% of the market that's going to pay up to $1,500 for a wedding film. And out of those people, you know, so that means what, 70,000 weddings that you're competing for. Out of those, and actually out of those 70,000 weddings, only 50% even consider getting any video at all. So you're competing for 30,000. And out of those 30,000, like, I think that's the way to look at it. Is like, because there's 30,000 weddings and you're competing for them. How many of them are going to go to a content creator and how many of them are actually looking for the service a wedding filmmaker provides? And I think that's what needs to shake itself out, because if there's out of that 70,000, if half of them weren't even going to get a wedding filmmaker and those people decide to get a content creator, they weren't going to ever consider you anyway. So they didn't take a job from you.
Sure.
Like, but they will take a job from someone. And I guess my question is like, do you think it will be so many, like that 30,000 crew in my hypothetical, that it will deeply affect the job? Like, how many of those people do you think are going to get a content creator instead of a wedding filmmaker?
I think it's a large amount. I think it's a large amount of people. Again, I think it's gonna. I do think it's gonna totally wipe out the whole bottom market. I think it's gonna wipe it out because and to what you said, I think is a good point. I think people will hire a videographer, show up, $500. I'll film your ceremony and deliver it to you the next day. There's a new emerging market of like, that's a videographer, but maybe that's just a camera or a phone on a tripod. Like,
The
I'm
problem
gonna
with
record.
phones is they just don't have inputs. And I don't think phone companies are going to
You can't have an input. You can't hook in your DJI microphone.
yeah,
into your
you
phone?
can.
Yeah.
But like you
And the way that Apple's going, I mean, you can record raw at this point. So they're making a production camera into your phone like now.
phones are expensive though. Having 3 phones, like
Oh, you just need a single. You just need a single angle, just like old school. Just single angle.
I don't think they're going to want that though, because they're going to want the person walking around and catching all the moments. So
maybe one phone is on a tripod and then the other phone is handheld.
I think
Exactly the way that we
I think
cover.
it's going to go to a filmmaker or
Yep.
someone who's a hybrid.
Sure.
And I think that will actually be what happens.
There's just going to be a hodgepodge of like, I do this. I do exactly the way that wedding films have worked out. No one does documentary edits anymore. Seems like the long 2-hour long, smush everything together and make a really crappy wedding film. Sorry if you produce those.
I mean, they do.
But no,
they scientifically suck.
yeah, they're terrible. But I still get asked every once in a while. I'm like, we just don't do it, and they're like, oh, yeah, no one does it. And I'm like, yeah, it's for good reason. It's bad. It's a bad thing. And actually, it's better because of this. It gives me an opportunity. But that kind of went away. Things change. They evolve. There's a lot of things to kind of like sift out. And things that are going to be,
then.
new
So since
services.
you've established you think of those 30,000, everyone will go to a content creator.
Probably. And this is the other part of it too, is like, you don't necessarily have to hire a content creator. You can have your Aunt Judy do it. Like, not well, but Aunt Judy can have her nice phone and be like, "Oh, I
That's
got a
probably
lot of
already
clips."
happening though.
It is.
Like,
But with the emergence of a whole market on a phone, people are just going to see the bridge to like,
So,
you can just do what a content
then this is
creator
part
does.
2 of my question. Then,
Yes.
what becomes the entry point now for people
yeah.
getting started who want to work in the industry?
It's going to get way harder because you're going to have to immediately work in luxury events. I think
Not luxury, mid market.
Mid-market, venues, country clubs, maybe like nicer country clubs. That's now your entry point. It's no longer going to be the barn down the street, the barn weddings and the lower end country clubs. All those are going to turn into content creators.
I think it actually makes the large chains more dangerous because their offering is much more compelling. because the price point below them is gone. Like there's not a lot of people competing with them anymore, and they become the beginning. And their price point is so compelling that, it could go the opposite, because it could be that like when a person wants to step into real wedding filmmaking.
So I disagree, because what do all these booking agencies need? They need young, inexperienced talent. If they're totally being wiped out, who are they going to book?
Well, they'll just have worse. That's just all people do. They'll have to just work
for these companies full time.
They won't get to start their own business shooting 25 weddings for $9.99.
Mm-hmm.
They might still get to. I don't agree with you. I think a lot of them will still get to do it because it's a different service.
Mm-hmm.
But less of them. And that could be a good thing. I do hope, my biggest hope is that people at the top of the market just start mentoring people and hiring more people.
Well, we say it all the time. It would be the best if we had actual infrastructure the way that the commercial world works, the way that Hollywood works is studio based, it's crew based. You have specialists.
Even if you don't have studios, though, just like at least
bring
hire
on a
people,
second shooter,
bring people on.
Yes,
like it will be good for you. It'll be good for them, and it's like a win-win for the clients too.
Yep. No, you have the situation.
Instead of hiring a guy who's just running their own business and they're free that weekend, because I think this would be better. I think a lot of people starting their own business is actually the reason they suck.
Yeah.
I have this one person in mind who asks questions all the time in a lot of groups. And every time I look at their stuff, I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing. You should not be running your own business. You don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying you're not talented, I'm probably not talented. I don't know. But you need to go work with someone. You need a mentor. I was like, oh, I'll sign up for a mentor session. No, not online. You need to go on set. You need to go just stand with someone who's shooting. You need to shadow people. Oh yeah, I shadowed my friend. No, for 30 weddings, not 2 weddings. You need to work with someone long enough to learn the industry instead of just jumping right in and starting your own thing. And the amount of people, I think there are people that have more longevity in the industry if they started out with a mentor than if they started their own thing. And I hope that is a change that happens. It's when people can't start their own terrible thing and humiliate themselves for many years. And some of them actually kind of succeed. And so they think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then they hit this wall, which is actually having to know what you're doing.
Right.
And they don't have the humility because they've kind of succeeded. They made that $60K and they've I booked 30 weddings. And I'm like, they were all terrible. Every single thing you did is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my place to tell you. You're an adult. You're running your own business. I'm not going to just come into your life and tell you that. But if you had a mentor, hopefully that happens for people. Is if the market does change the way you're anticipating, hopefully instead of just less people getting involved in wedding filmmaking, more people get involved in actually apprenticeship.
Right. I mean, just look at, Jake and Nate from Runaway Vows. I mean, they had Parker Wallback as their mentor for years. And then when they decided to do their own thing, they were launched into it because they were great at that point. They had a baseline, they had contacts, they were ready to rock.
Alex Douglas went to art school.
Sure.
He was already talented, but he went to art school. I don't think he would
More people should work for Alex Douglas, though. They should mentor under him. They should become a great filmmaker under Alex.
I'm saying just there's no one who, not no one, but most people who are doing great things had a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And worked with someone. They didn't just do their own thing.
Do you think that's the fault of the filmmaker coming up, or do you think that's the fault of the filmmaker who's already established?
So if we're saying do you have a moral obligation to mentor people and to pass on your knowledge? I think that's a question for artists throughout the ages. I think Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, even Raphael. Not just the turtles, the actual artists.
Right.
They all had students. Now that's part of how they made money.
Right.
They had their school, right? And you would learn their school and then go apply their craft. And you would be like, oh, he comes from the school of Donatello, his art.
So you're saying they were all volume artists.
They're all volume brands.
They're all volume brands. So
yeah, okay. Donatello was.
Maybe people should
Michelangelo
write some
was a volume
notes.
You know, but every philosopher had their own students. Um, and it was like, it's how artists have always existed throughout time, is they would have mentors and they would be part of a school of thought. They would either, whether it be an actual school or just someone that was their master. And that is how people learn. And the question is, should you, and do you have to? And I don't know. I don't really know if you're an artist, like, do you have the moral obligation to pass on your knowledge and help the next generation continue the art form? I don't know. I remember reading this book one time and called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. And it talks about, which I need to reread this book, but
It's a good book.
But it talks about immortality projects.
Mhm.
And it talks about the human desire, the need to live on beyond your death. Right. And like, do you want the art that you make to resonate? Do you want to leave it better than you found it? Do you want other people to make what you make? And like, I don't know if people should have the moral obligation to do this, but I do. Like, I like the money, it matters to me, but I want to make an impact.
Right.
Like, and like, if I die and I'm like on the back of my career now, probably, like statistically, I don't want to just quit and then my company just collapses and nobody says like, thank you for helping me. You know, like, I don't know, like, if someone's okay with that, I guess that's okay. But it's like, I do think it's good to do it. And I do wish more people did it. I can't force people to, I don't know that I can say they have to, but I look at it and I'm like, it does seem to be one of the things that's out of whack in the industry, and why a lot of work is bad is people are mentored by these like rando online parasocial relationships with this person who's like just getting paid by them to give them the same information regurgitated on a yearly basis. Not a real mentor. Like, if you hire me for a mentor session, I am not your mentor. I can give you a bunch of stuff. Like, I'm not that person's mentor, Jared.
No, the people that are your mentors are the people that actually work for you every single day, who sit in the edit bays, who go out and shoot, who we critique the crap out of on a daily and weekly basis.
I don't have a plan for you. I have a plan for Travis.
Yes.
He's my employee. He's a good young creative. I know some things he needs to work on. I also know some things he's good at. I want to put him in a position to succeed. I want to help him grow, and I want to help him avoid things that he will fail at.
Yep.
That's mentorship. If a person doesn't even know what you're going to succeed or fail at, how could they be your mentor?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I know this is off topic of being a content creator, but I do think every time you have like existential kind of crises, you have to look at like, are we actually like doing the right thing as a community to actually perpetuate ourselves? Like,
Yeah.
are we making children?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I do think that at the end of the day, you know, you get to a point where you're successful in the wedding film industry and you do want to have that immortality project, or you should want to, because it's what perpetuates the next generation. And, you know, even if you're in the middle of your career, it's what sustains your industry for a longer period of time and just makes it better. Like, that's the reason why we're doing wedding film school. You know, I can tell you it's not the money, but that's kind of the idea behind what I think what we're currently trying to do. Is just putting out good information for people to learn from. Like, I don't get paid from this. Like, I don't even do coaching sessions through wedding film school. So,
well, it's like, we're definitely practicing what we preach here, but at the same time, like, I definitely don't have a definitive opinion of if everyone should have to mentor people. Like, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, like, objectively, it would be better.
Totally.
For
everyone,
the industry, if more people did.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. It's like, I know it would raise prices. It would create more value to the good products.
Right.
And
well, the truth is, everyone who talks about creating value and valuing yourself, the value, the value add, you know, at the end of the day, when people think about the word videography, do they think there's so much value in that, like, quality, like I have to have that type of product at the end of the day. They don't think that. Maybe they think that in niche markets, like I need that person because they provide value. But as a whole, as the industry, they don't think that. They're paying $1,500 on average for it. So the concept of getting a wedding filmmaker does not preach luxury, quality. People don't think of that when they first think of a wedding film. They think
unless you believe.
They think of Uncle Charlie with the vest and, they still think that.
Yeah,
so,
and unless you believe that it will ever get to 98% of couples getting a wedding film, which I don't believe that will ever happen.
Right.
You need to realize, like, you're not going to be able to do the photographer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a supply and demand dynamic, which jacks their prices up. And I think all their prices are too high now, by the way, and I think they're all going to pay a price for it.
Who?
Photographers.
Okay.
All their prices are too high. Like, and when the market...
One would argue that they're already paying the price.
They are paying the price right now. The market correction is happening.
Yep.
And so it's like, but even then, they still can charge more than us because they have supply and demand. If you're waiting for 98% of like couples to also get wedding films, I think you're going to be waiting until you're dead.
Yep.
So I think you have to play a different game, which is like you're saying, which is, oh, well, no, of course you can't get it. It's a luxury product.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you can't get wedding filmmaking. It's a luxury product. Oh, you want to be a wedding filmmaker? Oh, you better be really good.
Mm-hmm.
That would be amazing if that was the industry we were in. And it would actually make the education valuable too. Because it wouldn't just be like, literally, like I could come up with a class right now to get somebody to book 15 weddings and make freaking $50,000. Anyone can do that now.
Yeah.
Like that's not hard.
Well, I think the difference we're talking about is like full-time people that are professionals versus part-time people who are hobbyists. Like I think the part-time people who are doing the 5, 10, 15 weddings a year at $2,000, making $20K, whatever it might be. I think those are the people that are in trouble. The comparison that I would make is like the commercial world. The commercial world, like no one complains about the kid who's 19, who has 2 cameras and a light. No one's complaining about that person, shooting for a barbershop who's going to pay him $1,000. No one's complaining about that because they're not serious. They're like,
well, no, because that
you
person
can't make a living. It's like, okay. That person would never book in the first place. That barbershop would never book a real production company.
That production company would never want that person to even call them.
Yes.
They would be like, please don't call me.
Yes.
Like that, because I honestly think wedding filmmakers blew it. Like we had a window in time and we blew it.
Well, that's what I'm arguing for now. I think the window of time is now. Like you change now or you are
I'm
obsolete.
saying like we could have saturated the market with wedding filmmaking if we figured out a way to offer it at a price people could afford. And we didn't, and we blew it, and it's over. And now something is going to come and take it away from you. And, you're just back to where you were at the beginning, which is a niche product.
Yep.
And, that kind of bums me out, but I think it is but I think it is the truth. Like it would have been better for wedding filmmakers if 98% of couples, just like photography, bought wedding films.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the ideal.
Of course.
But it's not going to happen. And we couldn't figure out a way to provide a quality product across a range of prices. Maybe it's impossible, by the way.
A range of prices. Also, at the end of the day, people not providing raw footage, people not providing
bad
quick
services.
Content, it's biting us in the butt now, because people just replaced you with something else that they see as valuable. So
they didn't view it as a business. They didn't view it as something that could be replaced. They viewed themselves as irreplaceable artists, and they created an industry that they actually are at risk in. And I think that's just, it is what it is. I feel like.
Yep. But, all right, so let's wrap this up, guys. Hopefully this has been helpful and just kind of thinking about your future as a wedding filmmaker. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. Again, don't hate the
especially
player.
If you're new listening to this, like we keep doing what you're doing, keep pushing. Like right. I don't think it's a threat right now, but
I just think people should be aware of where we, as very experienced people who have been in the industry for a long time, see the industry going. I talk to planners, high-end planners, low-end planners, like the whole spectrum of people, and it's coming. So you got to plan for it, be ready for it, be ready to be, shift. Same thing as COVID. You have to be ready to change your approach. Otherwise, you could be left behind. So, anything else you want to add before we log off, Jason?
No, but just as a reminder, we do Ask Me Anything episodes. So head over to weddingfilm.school/AMA and submit a question. And we love those. It's one of our favorite things to do on the podcast, and we will answer your question if we can.
Facebook, YouTube. We have 2 YouTube channels, as well as on Instagram, The Wedding Film School Show. Guys, have a great week. We'll see you next time right here on The Wedding Film School Show.